Hello and welcome to Historical Selfie. Today we're at the Bear Mountain Zoo. Back in the American Revolution, this was Fort Clinton, and we're going to be hiking to Anthony's Nose, which is 912 feet above sea level. So join me as we live history. On today's hike, I'll try to include some historical information to give you better context as we go on this hike. The Bear Mountain Bridge will start the golden age of bridge construction, which included modern marvels such as the George Washington Bridge and the Golden Gate Bridge of San Francisco. It was the first of its type to have a concrete deck. This is a special birthday edition of Historical Selfie as I turn 50. During the American Revolution, the Great Chain was placed across the Hudson River to prevent the British from attacking, and it would have been anchored here at the Fort Clinton site going across to Anthony's Nose. And Fort Montgomery was to the north, and right here where I'm standing is Fort Clinton. So the twin forts were here to protect the Hudson Valley against British invasion, and there will be a battle here that ultimately will result in a British victory, but they're going to be attempting to go north to Saratoga, and thankfully, through the heroic efforts of the soldiers here at Fort Montgomery and Fort Clinton, they're able to slow down the British from assisting at Saratoga. Along the hike at the Bear Mountain Zoo, you'll notice a sign here dedicated to Jane Colden, and I learned something new, that she is considered a trailblazer in botany, and she is considered America's first female botanist. So shout out to Jane Colden. During colonial times, the oxen was the beast of burden that would do most of the heavy lifting and hauling before excavating equipment that we have today. There's a lot of trees that need to be chopped down in the Hudson Valley, so they didn't have chainsaws like we do today. So these were the instruments used. So it took a lot of hard work for our colonial ancestors to create the world we live in today. While at the Bear Mountain Zoo, you can also see our state animal, the beaver. From Trailside Zoo, a pedestrian sidewalk takes you across the Bear Mountain Bridge. In 1922, the bridge was the first vehicular river crossing between New York City and Albany. During the American Revolution, the Hudson River was known as the North River. At this point, you may be asking, who is Anthony? And did he really have a big nose? So Anthony's Nose is named after Anthony Hogan, a sea captain who I guess had a rather prominent nose. So here you can do your historical nose selfie to see if your nose matches up with that of Anthony Hogan. Back in 1697, the name of Anthony's Nose first appears in a grant patent of Pierre Van Cortlandt, the owner of the mountain. This can be a very busy stretch of the road here, so use extreme caution when crossing the street and look both ways. So as you're walking on 9, you're going to be going past some of the oldest rock in New York State. This granite dates back to over 1 billion years ago. All right, blue sign alert. So this area is part of Camp Smith, and that serves as the New York National Guard. So there's a lot of military presence in this area. You'll notice some helicopters flying by. And also we have West Point just on the other side of the river to the north of us. So definitely this area has always been a hub for military use. So Anthony's Nose is located in Westchester County, but the entrance to the trail is right here in good old Putnam County. The Anthony's Nose hike is part of the Appalachian Trail system. So this is over 2,000 miles of volunteer trail work stretching from Georgia all the way up to Maine. So it goes right past Anthony's Nose and right through Putnam County. So this hike is pretty straightforward. Even I can't get lost. And it's a lot easier because of the steps that were put in by the trail work volunteers here. So this hike is made possible by the dedicated efforts of all those men and women who want to get us outdoors in the Hudson Valley and get us some exercise. All right, so the hardest part of the elevation climb is over, and now we're going to bear to the right and head up to the overlook for Anthony's Nose, where you get a nice view of the entire Hudson River Valley. So off on the trail, you'll notice these large boulders that look like they're just placed here. And in fact, they were. After the last ice age, when the ice melted, they left behind these rocks that were sort of tumbled along. So they're called glacial erratics, and they came from far away, pushed by the ice glaciers, and then when the glaciers melted, they stayed here. So I like to think of them as our first statues that we can take historical selfies with and realize that the land that we were in is constantly changing. So I made to the top of Anthony's Nose. So it's definitely a nice hike. It's a pretty popular hike, but if you go in mid-November, like today, there's not quite as many people out there. So behind me is Hessian Lake, and then you'll see the Bear Mountain Park. Obviously you have the Hudson River, and you have Iona Island to the south, and then you have Fort Montgomery north of the bridge, and then if you keep going north on the other side, you'll go to West Point. So George Washington called this area the key to the American Revolution, so the Hudson was the key, and this is a strategic important part of our revolutionary history, and today it's a great place to come and explore. In the Hudson River Valley, you have all of history sort of unfolding right before your eyes, so you can go back to the last ice age and see remnants there. We've had indigenous people live in this area for thousands of years as well. And then we have the arrival of Henry Hudson in 1609. All right, so thank you for sharing this 50th birthday with me. So it's been a pleasure hiking around the Hudson Valley and pointing out obscure facts for you. Hopefully I can do this for another 50 years and keep learning more about history. All right, so that's it for me. It's time to rejoin my family and celebrate. So keep living history, and peace.
Like and subscribe.